A group of teenage boys compete in an annual tradition contest where they must walk maintaining a certain speed or die. What a plot line. What a plot line. This is based on a Stephen King story. It's actually based on one of his novels under his pseudonym Richard Buckman. I have not watched the trailer, but I can tell you this disturbing premise, this dystopian horror thriller looks absolutely terrifying. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the promotional clips that they have been doing where people have to walk on the treadmill in the cinema, and if they don't maintain a certain speed, instead of them taking them out, they just take them out the door. I would have loved to do something like that, but I am going to the premiere where I live, and I am so excited to check this out and let you know whether it is more than a premise, whether there is an actual story here. I have not read the book. I'm sure there is a story, but I wonder how far it can go beyond this almost Squid Games, Hunger Games, Battle Royale type setup. The film is directed by Francis Lawrence as well, who has done majority of the Hunger Game films, and it stars David Johnson and Charlie Plummer. I can't wait to see if this is disturbing. You guys know I love disturbing films, if it's gory, and if it is a heart-thumping, white-knuckling, edge-of-your-seat type of horror movie that you should check out in your local cinemas. I'm gonna let you know spoil-free if it's worth your time and who it's made for. Let's go see The Long Walk. Let's go. Take a deep breath. My God, was that exhilarating? I just got out of The Long Walk. My heart is still pounding a little bit. That was definitely thrilling. Definitely thrilling. No ifs, whats, buts about that fact. This was such an interesting film because it was predictable, but in a way that was excruciating. And I'm not saying like excruciatingly bad, just it worked really well, even though the result, it's hard. It's a hard watch, especially knowing Stephen King's style. It definitely played into all of the beats and stereotypes, but it was different enough for me to enjoy. I have a few apologies to make because I did not watch any of Cooper Hoffman's films before this. He was in Licorice Pizza, Saturday Night. These are just ones I've missed, but he was in The Long Walk and he is the lead character in this film. He's also the late and great Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, which makes perfect sense. But he was insanely good in this film. Actually, the whole cast made this film. So the movie is about guys that have to walk. They enter into this contest called The Long Walk, and here they have to walk. I'm not going to spoil any of, even though there's a lot that comes out at the start, but I don't want to spoil any of the motives, but it is a huge part of this film, and this film definitely has a very strong angle on corruption and a dystopian, I don't want to say exaggerated, but a dystopian society that acts, well, it would have acted as a metaphor back then for a lot of things. But I think that the stylization of this film is what makes it quite unique, because while we see dystopian films that do battle royale structures like the Hunger Games, we see that in a very fantastical way. Some elements. But also high tech. When you see dystopian futures, usually they have a lot of technology or an emphasis on that, or a greater access to certain things that we don't have currently. So this film being kind of set in an 80s like era, but also being dystopian, so it's like in the past but a scary future, was really interesting, because instead of having technology and this bleak, dark, cruel world made of steel and, concrete jungles, it is located in a very familiar setting, except the bleakness came through in the gritty textures, the hard road that they're walking down, the overcast sky. It was a bleak film that was mostly, I mean, a lot of it is during the day, where your horrors have nowhere to hide, where the bloodshed is just on the pavement in front of you. So I thought that was a really interesting look. And I also was kind of tested by everything I thought that would happen in this film. I didn't consider what could happen on a long walk. And I think once you consider that, it's pretty gnarly. This film does have a good amount of gore. It is a strange mix of monologues where people are talking about their motivations, what life means to them, and also the contrast of just watching some brutality, ongoing brutality that can happen at any time, keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's a no-brainer. It works really well, and I think it does set it apart from other battle royale films because this is a constant. This is out in the open. They're not hiding anything. There is no betrayal, kinda, but there's nothing but these guys just walking in a line. And that's what I was worried about. I thought it would be quite, not boring, but I just wondered how much they could add to the story. But the pacing is perfect, mind the pun, because they have to walk at a certain speed. But the pacing was really well done, and I found myself more horrified that Stephen King's predictability, it was horrifying me because there are only certain things that could happen. And when the horrors set in, it's like you don't want them to happen, but at the same time, you want them to happen quick. So that was a really interesting moment in the crowd. And it's very cool psychology behind pushing the audience to that line and seeing how long you can hold them there. In saying that, I didn't feel like the film went for too long at all. It hit all the beats that I was expecting. I would say that there was a couple of interesting, I wouldn't say misdirections, but I'm not sure if there were scenes that were deleted. Just certain aspects and items were introduced and then never kind of wrapped around, and I always have a question about that. So just take everything that comes along as literal in a dystopian universe where the worst is happening, and there are some good reveals. Even if they are predictable, I still felt it was satisfying in a certain way. I also should say Mark Hamill plays a very interesting character in this one, but you don't get to know too much, which is quite intentional. It is a cold, gritty film that surprisingly has a lot of heart, and I think that is what's so jarring about it in a good way. You're watching this awful thing happen and you're seeing walls being broken down between people, barriers, and them opening up and being vulnerable with each other. So it's a very strange mix of brutality in the most simplest form while you're watching, as they say in the film, like a bleeding heart. I mean, it's very Stephen King, so it's very friendship oriented, and yeah, it's very vulnerable. So I thought that the actors carried this, obviously, but they really did. The casting in this film is phenomenal, and that is the reason enough to see it, that it just made the whole film. They just did such perfect choices for all of these characters. I don't know how different it is to the book, but it kept it quite intriguing. It's a high-stake movie that I would even put in a disturbing column. I watch a lot of disturbing movies and put a lot of disturbing lists together, and I wouldn't have thought twice to put this on a disturbing movie list. It's somewhere in between thriller and horror, but it's definitely horrifying. I can't stress enough that there is a predictability factor in this film, but it doesn't take away from the powerful moments in it, and I'm kind of glad, don't get mad at me, I'm kind of glad that Mike Flanagan wasn't in on this Stephen King story, because it was just gritty enough that I don't think his polished work would have been as believable as kids having this dialogue. Some of it was definitely profound, but the delivery and the dark, bleak atmosphere, I just didn't want it to be too polished, and I think that they hit the sweet spot. Also, I do want to say music was a big factor in this film. It definitely drove forth the emotional elements and stakes and kind of peaked and flowed through that. I thought it was a really good pairing and a nice marry between the two. It wasn't too much, but at times it did feel quite theatrical and epic. Great to see at the cinema. Great to see at the cinema. I enjoyed this film. I do think it's quite predictable, and I do want to say and put it out there, I did not like the last 5 seconds. I think it ended the way it had to, but I did not enjoy the very ending. I just don't think that made much sense for it. Overall, I am quite pleasantly surprised by this one. I had tears. I was holding back the entire film, and I was definitely white knuckling it. It was a exhilarating experience. I definitely had some stress sounds. And it has some very interesting gross moments. They weren't afraid to show the gore, and you really felt it. You really felt it. I really wish I could have done this as the treadmill exercise. I honestly think this went as well as I could have. Honestly, this isn't one to miss. If you like disturbing films, do not miss my warning. This is disturbing. It is heartbreaking. It's also quite pointed with its messaging. It's quite a deep message. I mean, why would these kids be doing this? It was a very interesting look at how we can make current films dystopian without adding in sci-fi and extra fantasy kind of elements or any advanced technology. So I really liked it for that. And I was really curious how I would go watching a film of just some guys walking down a road. Turns out terrifying. Turns out I had my heart in my throat the entire time. Great characters, great characters. Once again, the actors sold it for me. I'm gonna give this one an 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it much more than I thought I would, and I think I'll be thinking about it for quite a while. It is very predictable though. For originality, it is Battle Royale, and I've said that several times over, but I would still give it a 6. And for scare, not so much scary, but definitely gory, and gory in some ways that you probably haven't thought of yet. I would say the gore is really interesting in this one because it's quite surprising at moments, but then other times it is so excruciatingly obvious, yet you have to sit through and the result is the same. So for gore, I'd probably give it a 6. I have seen things much gorier than this, but to the average horror movie. Okay, The Long Walk. Have you guys seen this? Are you looking forward to it? Gets my tick of approval. I definitely think you should go check this one out at the cinema. Just know it's gonna be a brutal, bleak ride, so I hope you're ready to be depressed for the rest of the evening. And if you have read the book, I would love to know your thoughts on this versus the book as well, and what you expect if you haven't seen the movie yet, if you read the book. I would love to hear all of your thoughts down below in the comments. Let me know your ratings. Don't forget, I have a video on everything to watch this month, as well as I saw Toxic Avenger very recently, if you want to hear my spoiler-free thoughts on that. And don't forget to subscribe if you like horror movies, and I'll talk to you all very soon. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.